Waxing isiXhosa Grammar, Part 1, the passive. So you're probably asking yourself, what is a passive? Hi. So it's quite an important concept to understand when learning Xhosa or any of the Bantu languages, because in these languages the passive tense or mood, you would say in linguistics, is used a lot more than what we're used to in English. But basically it's also the same thing. So an active sentence would be something like, I ate the apple, or he ate the apple, someone read the book. And a passive sentence is when nothing has happened to the object. So the book is read by someone, the apple is eaten by someone. You don't have to mention the person that did it. You can also just say the apple was eaten, the book was taken. And that's what passive sentences do. They allow you to leave out the doer, the person doing it. You can just say mention the object or the person or the thing that was affected, that was acted upon. And in this video we're going to look at how to use the passive just in this case, without mentioning the doer, the person. In a later video I'm going to do on the copula. I will show you how to also include the doer if you want to say who the book was read by, or who the computer was used by. Now, as I said, it's used more often in Xhosa, so there are certain expressions that might sound unnatural if you translated it into English with the passive. For instance, in the last video, the conversation between Mary and Temba, she says, I'm going to be missed. She says, I'm going to miss my meeting if I don't go now. But if you look at the way she says it in Xhosa, it's literally, I will be missed by the meeting, and not I will miss the meeting. So that doesn't sound natural in English, but that is how you would say it in isiXhosa. So very simply, one just adds the wa at the end of your verb stem to make it a passive verb. So here I've listed active verbs on the left with their passive equivalents on the right. You see ukufunda, to learn, to read, to study, and ukufundwa would be to be read, to be studied, to be learnt. Ukutanda, to love, and ukutandwa, to be loved, to be popular in that sense, because it's something that is loved, it is liked. Ukuteta, to speak, ukutetwa, to be spoken, ukubona, to see, ukubonwa, to be seen, ukubatala, to pay, from Afrikaans batal, and ukubatalwa, to be paid. There is another Xhosa word for pay, ukuhlaula, but this one is easier to remember because of the Afrikaans batal, ukubatala. So here are some examples. Le ncwadi ifundwa eklasini yam. This book is read, ifundwa, or is studied in my class. isiXhosa sithethwa kwilizwe lonke. isiXhosa is spoken in the whole country. Le dolophu ithandwa kakhulu. This town is very popular, or literally, this town is loved a lot. Ezintyatyambo zibonwa ekoloni. These flowers, they are seen, zibonwa, in the Cape, ekoloni. Sihlala sibatalwa ngempelaveki. So this means we are usually paid on the weekend. Literally, sihlala would be like we live, we stay, but it's an expression, if you say another verb after that, it means we usually are. So sihlala sibatalwa, we are paid ngempelaveki, on the weekend. Now, to form the past tense, we have something similar to active verbs. You also have a short form and a long form. Instead of just having e and ile with the active verbs, in the passive verbs you have we and iwe at the end. So iyafundwa would mean it is being learnt, it is being studied. This I would just be for it, thing, generic thing. Iyafundwa, ifundwe, it was studied. Ifundiwe, that's the long form, it was studied. Iyabuzwa, it is asked, because ukubuza is to ask, and abuzwa, to be asked. Ibuzwe, it was asked, and ibuziwe, it was asked. Iyatatwa, it was taken, the short form itatwe, and the long form itatiwe. Imoto itatiwe, the car was taken. Itatwe ekseni, it was taken in the morning. Ibali lifundiwe, the story was read. Lifundwe eklasini, it was read in the class. Ukutya kutyiwe, the food was eaten. Imibuzo ibuziwe, the questions, they were asked. Another way that you would often see this iwe is on adjectives. So basically these adjectives come from the verb, like in this case to be asked, and they are formed by using this, what I've put before the dot e, and at the end yo. In this case, questions that are asked. So the asked questions, the questions that were asked. Imibuzo ebuziwe, or just as a little side note, you'll often see these forms with the passive, past tense, iwe, and then yo at the end. And another small thing to take note of is that when we use a word in the passive, a verb, then depending on the phonetics of that word, there might be a thing called palatalization, which is basically that we. So in linguistics, palatalization means your tongue goes to the palate, to the top of your mouth, and you have this y sound. So for some verbs, especially if they have a m in the middle of it, and an n or an n with another consonant. So in this case, we have the verb ukuhlamba is to wash. Okay, ukuhlamba, you can kind of think of that as a combination of hlala, to live and stay, or hamba, to go. I always remembered it that way. So you mix up hamba and hlala and you get hlamba, which means to wash. So umtu ushlambe imoto, somebody washed the car. Umtu meaning person or somebody. Umtu ushlambe imoto. Imoto ishlanjiwe, the car was washed. So we can't say ishlambiwe. This mb has to be palatalized in the passive. So certain sound combinations like mb, and we'll see in the next one z, they get palatalized. So it helps to just remember a sentence like imoto ishlanjiwe, the car was washed. Sisebenzisa ezimoto, we are using these cars. So you might remember the verb sebenza means to work. Sebenzisa, to cause to work, is the verb to use. Okay, so it's we use sisebenzisa ezimoto, these cars. Ezimoto ziyasetshenziswa, these cars are being used. So here, are being used is a passive sentence, and that's why the sebenza in the middle becomes setchenza, setchenziswa.